Let's go!
Welcome in, everyone. It's another episode of Fish Stripes Lives. We got the series preview for the Cubs series 20-year anniversary of that infamous NLCS when the Marlins eventually won the World Series. We got Alex Carver from Fish on the Farm. Of course, we have Eli, Alex Krutchik. I'm your host, Grant Kiefer, and we'll start off with last series, 4-game set, second 4-game series of the year for the Marlins, I believe. And it wasn't a good one. And one miraculous ninth inning really changed it all. So starting with that first game, just a massacre. Spencer Strider almost had a perfect game. He was just that close. The Brian Hoeing game did not really go as planned. The third game, Sandy Alcantara, he was shoving it first, but didn't really work out the way the Marlins wanted. And, of course, the comeback yesterday. 5 runs in the ninth inning. Incredible win. The Marlins are back to 500 with the Chicago Cubs in town this weekend with some national eyes on 2 of the 3 games. We'll talk about that later, but we'll just go around the board here. What are our general thoughts from this series, specifically yesterday's wild comeback?
Well, it held true to this stat that you've been following the whole season, the split where if they allow 5 runs, they're screwed. And if they allow 4 or less runs, it's just they have just enough to win all those games, and that held true for this series. They had no shot in that opening game against Spencer Strider. He is, if anybody had any imagination of a sophomore slump from him, he's quickly putting that to bed. He's such a reliable and just a perfect combination of reliability and high upside, the highest possible upside with him. The way that he makes it work with just 2 pitches is really awe-inspiring, and you have to be envious as the Marlins that they were able to lock him up now long-term already, but even before this season. I went into more detail on the Hoeing start and the Sandy start on our new pod. Wherever you're watching this, you could find Fishology where we went into both of those. In the Hoeing one, you need to give him credit that it held true to the reports and the data we were seeing that his stuff has ticked up this year from where it was towards the end of last season. He'll be starting again this weekend, and I'm cautiously optimistic that he can be a viable fill-in spot starter for a period of time with what the stuff that he has and the improvement of his slider as well. So he's not totally dependent on that sinker. And with Sandy, the question is, for whatever reason, he was what made him so special last year is working deep into games, finishing what he started, being as good at the end of games as he was in the beginning. And this year, that hasn't really held true with one exception. In most of his starts, you just see the wheels come off the third time through the order with him. That's something that hopefully they'll get figured out. But of course, we want to focus a lot on that comeback that really changed so much. To have one particular inning, that one rally, mostly against AJ Minter just yesterday, to have so many players involved in it. That was the biggest takeaway from me, to have Gene Segura involved in that, to have Jazz get a hit against the lefty, only his 3rd hit against the lefty all year. And Garrett Cooper was the one that pushed him over the top. He had quietly been slumping the last few weeks as well. That particular inning, I don't know if they'll have another one like it this entire year, to be trailing and to flip a game around entirely on its head with so many people involved. for a team that has its offensive limitations. That was really encouraging. Despite losing the first series in a while, I think that was obviously a pleasant flight home to go into the series. The vibes, that kind of straightened out the vibes from heading in what could have been a really dangerous direction had they not pulled that one out.
It was also nice to watch because that sort of thing never happens to the Marlins in Atlanta. Atlanta has been such a house of horrors for the last few years. Even by Braves standards, they've been really, really, really good against the Marlins, especially in Atlanta. It is such a deflating place to go to, not just as a fan, but I'm sure for the players to know what the history has been over the last few years. And so for you to be down 4 runs in the 9th inning, 3 outs to go against AJ Minter, who's one of the better relievers in the league, to come back and not only win the game, but to win the game right then and there. They didn't just tie it up. They got the go-ahead run as well, and then 1, 2, 3. Dylan Floro shut them down in the 9th. To see that happen in Atlanta, of all places, that was incredible to watch.
Alex Carver, any thoughts?
Yeah, no. For me, it's the first game with Cabrera. I mean, yeah, it was over early, as Eli just said before. They had no chance. Well, why did they have no chance? They had no chance once again, and as me and Eli have both clamored for, because Edward Cabrera is not throwing the fastball. And you see the variance that it can have. You saw how good he can be when he has his curveball and breaking stuff working in his a couple of his previous starts. And then you see it in this start when he doesn't have that working and he doesn't have the fastball to rely on in the background. You see how bad it can get. And this was as bad as it can get for Edward, with 4 walks and 6 strikeouts and allowing 2 home runs. So if he does not get the fastball back, there is a limited ceiling for this guy to reach his full potential, to me. And that's very concerning. So, man, I think Baseball America said it, I think last year, that they see him as a closer by 2025. And if this is the way that his stuff is going to pan out and how he's going to use his stuff, that's totally possible. Very, very concerning to me, the trajectory of Edward Cabrera. That's what I will say for him.
And Trevor Rogers kind of seemed to have the same problem last year of just being predictable. You look at the box score there. Of course, it doesn't tell the entire story of the game, but through the order the first time, Edward Cabrera had only allowed 1 run, I believe. And you see when you get in the innings 4, 5, and 6, it just gets bad. Of course, it's going to be hard to beat Spencer Strider when he's pitched probably the best game of his career. And there is a very, very solid chance he wins NL Cy Young this year. But Edward Cabrera seems like he might not pan out in that starter role. But panning back to closers here, we said that this was a possible split for the Marlins. We knew it wasn't going to be a sweep. But there was one game that they just kind of fumbled away. It's in your bottom left corner here. Dylan Floro took his first loss of the season, by far his worst game this season, maybe his worst game as a Marlin. Gave up the 4 runs in that 8th inning. Just what happened there?
Well, not going in chronological order, he kind of hurt himself with an error that he made during that inning that let it get out of hands. I think that was when they were already down by 1 at that point, but still, that's one of the unforced things, the additional things that go beyond just his effectiveness as a pitcher. Those are the little things that contribute to having, as you said, especially bad outing by his standards, is when even the soft contact that you get doesn't go your way. And in general, for most of that inning, you have to admit there was some bad luck going against him. Even the home run that Matt Olson hit wasn't barreled. It was one that just barely made it over the right field wall to start the scoring in the first place. I think from that point forward, even when he still had the lead after that home run, you kind of got nervous as to what direction things were headed in. There were at least one, as I go through the play-by-play of that, there was, the bunt single, a soft ground ball to third base that John Birdie, it was a makeable play from John Birdie. I remember seeing it, and he kind of like double clutched at it. He allowed the fact that Birdie didn't help him out, he didn't get the help from his defense on that particular play. And then right after that, the triple by Eddie Rosario that got past Garrett Cooper on the opposite line. That was a kind of play where I think it was a fair question to wonder if Yuli Gurriel should have been brought in as a defensive sub by that point to try to make that same diving attempt, and how much things could go on differently if he just gets a glove on that instead of it going all the way into the corner. Ultimately, it doesn't really change how I feel about Floro. this is just something that's going to happen if you're a kind of type pitcher that relies on balls in play quite a bit. We've talked quite a bit about Floro the last couple of years, especially with Carver on, because that the difference between him and somebody like Alex Vesia, who he was traded for, is that Alex Vesia, when he's on, he misses so many more bats, and you don't have the risk of an inning like this happening. But Floro, there are a couple times every year, even when things are going well ordinarily, there are inevitably going to be games like this because he pitches to contact, and sometimes you just can't control exactly where that contact goes. There's some unpredictability to it.
Yeah, I think with him, and I talk about it all the time with you guys, I think with him is that when he was traded here, not that I was against the trade, but when he was traded here, it was like, oh, okay, he has World Series experience, which, yes, there's something to be said for that. But he did not have near the stuff that Alex Vesia proves that he has. So, yeah, he's going to have these outings where he struggles. You saw one of them here. I do still like him. I do think he's a solid back-end guy. I think he's totally fine in that role. But like we said, the World Series experience can't be counted in for everything, as we have seen with Floro from time to time. So I do like him. I think he's fine. But yeah, he's going to have these outings because his stuff is just not nearly as dominant as some other back-end relievers.
What I did like seeing was then the very next day, shutting down the Braves in that ninth inning in the comeback. It showed that it didn't bother him too much. And more importantly, I loved seeing it from Skip as well, that he wasn't scared to go back to him.
So while we're waiting on our press box report here, we'll answer chat questions. Of course, no guests today. We'll be a little bit more involved with you guys. So Marlins are back to 500. Do we think that the Marlins are playing better or worse than current record? So there's this thing called the Pythagorean record. A lot of times the Marlins have had a better record in there than they've actually had. This year, it's actually different, whereas the Marlins have a worse record than what they're expected. I think 8-18 is that their Pythagorean record right now?
I'll throw it up in a moment just for you to see. It is
so that is what the computer's telling us. It's a little bit better. What, like 9-10 wins?
9 and 17 entering today in terms of Pythagorean record, where, as you see, averaging less than 4 runs a game in a year where offense is up quite a bit across baseball, and they're allowing almost 6 runs a game to this point. So it's just, this is just when people point to the 1-run games and how every single one of those are going in the Marlins' favor. We know that that's not going to be sustainable. And I think anybody can agree that at this point they are, they're playing a little bit over their heads to get to this point.
All right, we've got our 2 stooges at the ballpark today, Daniel and Kevin. Is this your guys' first combo this year at the ballpark? First time you guys have been together?
I think our second combo. I think our first was the Mets.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys are there. The Marlins are back home after what felt like a ridiculously long home or road trip. It's been 9 days since the Marlins have played at Lone Depot Park. Since that lost to the Giants, where Devin Smeltzer blew it. And Devin Smeltzer has been designated for assignment, so he wasn't there today. I know Kevin wanted to write something on him, but roster moves were made today. What can you tell us about some of those?
Yeah, the Marlins made some roster moves. Johan Kazada coming up for the Marlins. Skip mentioned that he knew of him while his tenure in St. Louis. He didn't see him in spring training here with Miami, so he knew him from St. Louis. He has a big arm. They really needed just a fresh arm. He still says he was really impressed by Devin Smeltzer and everything that he did. Coming in for cleanup, for that game opener against the Cleveland. He said he was really proud and really liked what he saw from Devin Smeltzer, but it was just he needed a fresh arm, especially with that rain delay and everything. So they really needed a fresh arm, and he knew of Kazada from his time in St. Louis. Didn't really say anything there, but those were Skip's thoughts on that roster move right there. It really hurt to DFA Smeltzer, but they got an arm that he knew of.
Something to mention on this arm. Second stint with Miami. He pitched, I think, in the COVID year for the Marlins very briefly. But I talked to a couple of people in player dev for the Marlins this spring on this pitcher. Just something very briefly. I did have it that he was up to 101 maximum velocity for this pitcher. He's a 6'9", really, really tall guy. The issue is the control. But what I will also say, and I put this out on Twitter a little earlier, is that he also added in another pitch in spring training this year, a cutter. So pretty encouraging. Was in limited time pretty good in AAA as well. But yeah, like you see on the screen, adding in another pitch as well is pretty cool. So we'll see what this guy has and what he can do.
Yeah, he's my guy. I was 3 years ago when the Marlins signed him originally. They didn't invite him to Major League Spring Training, and yet he was on my radar because of the size, because of the stuff that it wasn't hard to see a path where he could become a useful reliever. We barely got to see a glimpse of that in 2020, and since then he couldn't quite break through from the high minors again. I saw him pitch in winter ball, I think as recently as last year again, and still relatively young. I think he's still in his 20s. But yeah, what jumps out is the height and also the fastball velocity. The extension he gets off the mound isn't actually anything all that special. I think keep expectations relatively low for Kazada. We'll see how long he sticks on the active roster and whether when his time is done, they even option him or simply DFA him. So not to expect much from this, but this is what you expect from a bullpen, is that they rotate that final spot with fresh arms constantly. And so they got what they won from Smeltzer, at least the last week, not so much the first week of his tenure, but more recently, he did add some value to their organization. Maybe he sticks around if he clears waivers, accepts an outright assignment. We'll find out in the next few days as to what his future is.
So I want to ask a pretty in-depth question here. It's probably an Eli or Alex Carver one to answer, but the Marlins do love their freakishly tall pitchers. You've got Sandy, you've got Yuri, and you've got this guy. How much do you guys think extension really matters to Mel when developing a pitcher?
It depends on the particular guy. In this case, I just bring it up because that's the main advantage you have as a tall pitcher, is that you can deliver closer to the plate if you want to, if you have the mechanics to do so. And with Kazada, even though he's 6'9", his extension is more like 6'3". So it doesn't necessarily get all that closer to the plate compared to your typical pitcher, but he is throwing even harder now than he was a few years ago when he was in the organization. As Carver mentioned, topping out at 101 in spring. Since regular season began, he's topped out at 100, so not bad from that aspect of it. That is the hardest thrower in the Marlins bullpen. I'd keep expectations low again for this guy, especially because this Marlins bullpen has been used very heavily over the last week plus. So they could use a deep outing. They really wouldn't mind if Kazada's just chilling on the couch in the bullpen for this entire weekend while they go to guys who are more established and more trustworthy.
Yeah, I don't think it's everything. I think it's something that they target. I think it's something that they look at when they're targeting the guys that they really, really like. But then you see a guy like Patrick Monteverde pop off and he's 6'2". So, it's not everything. There is something to be said for shortening the distance to the plate, like you said, Grant, for sure. That is definitely an ability to create deception in that, which is a lot of what Dev looks at, I think, and a good thing to have. But I don't think it's everything, especially if you don't know where the ball is going. And like Eli said, I would temper my expectations for Kazada because there are times where he doesn't really know where the ball is going. So I hope he does well, especially with his new pitch added in, but we'll see what happens.
We got Kevin in the press box, as we had mentioned, but of course want to acknowledge him. We got to acknowledge Isaac here as well. But Kevin, sights and sounds, what was happening at the ballpark during clubhouse and Skip's availability?
It's been going well. Nothing, no complaints. It's been a good vibe so far. BP, Seiya Suzuki hit some bombs. Like, it was butterflies bars. That was impressive. The Cubs, big fan base here for them. So it's a lot. Skip, obviously, I think Danny mentioned it. Smeltzer, that, he's been gone, but, he did everything he had to do, Skip mentioned. And Wendell, I think he said it's like 2 or 3 more rehab starts, so he's back. Obviously, we saw the injury report, a lot to take in there. Johnny Cueto, 6 is going to throw 2 innings, 30. I think it's 35 pitches that they're limiting him at. Nick Enright, same. He's pitching in a rehab game in Jupiter. So a lot to take in, a lot of positive news for the Marlins when it comes to the injury report. And Chargois now 120 feet, so he's starting to throw. And Trevor, that's the only negative one. We thought it may have been a little bit of quicker IL stint. He's still not throwing. But, I guess if you look at the lineup, Jesus Sanchez, Avi Garcia are in there. I mean, he said it's kind of giving DLC a day off after the day he had, but he kind of described it more as riding the hot hand. And in this case, it would kind of be Sanchi and Navi Garcia, who's looked pretty good in Atlanta. There's just no other way to put it.
We make fun of you a lot for paying for Twitter, getting the Twitter blue, but you fit all that in a tweet. It seems like a wise investment now that you fit all that. Very good job with that.
Yeah.
Of course, it's mostly pitchers. Wendell, he did tell me last week he only needs a couple rehab starts, so could definitely see him next road trip, Chicago, Arizona. Of course, have the Braves series after this. But anything else to add from the ballpark, Kevin, or Daniel sitting right next to you?
Why don't you tell them you were speaking to this guy, Vladimir Guerrero Sr.? Maybe people have heard of him.
Oh, yeah. You talked to a Hall of Famer today. I forgot about that.
Yeah, tell the people why he's there and what you talked about with him in Spanish.
So in 2024, the Marlins are hosting La Serie del Caribe, which is basically a WBC, but very condensed. A lot lesser known players, kind of just winter ball players playing in the kind of the WBC. They're adding 2 teams. I think it's Nicaragua and Curacao. I don't know how to say the other name, but
Curacao.
Yeah. So they're adding those 2 teams. Vladdy is basically the ambassador of the Serie del Caribe, basically with Daddy Yankee for the WBC. That's what Vladdy's doing here. Andrew Jones tomorrow will be at the ballpark. They're holding a press conference to talk about La Serie del Caribe, which is holding a good amount of teams, and it's going to be a good vibe here. And Vladdy's just been here, and he's very excited. He talked about when he played, and I highly suggest you to listen to the interview. I'll be putting out an English translation to the interview for the ones interested in listening to that. So, yeah, I mean, tomorrow they're making a celebration. They have removed the WBC wall that we saw in left field, and they have put a Serie del Caribe one. So they'll probably be doing some type of ceremony, you assume, there tomorrow, announcing both teams. It's going to be a good day at the ballpark. Highly suggest you all to come out. They're basically trying to make this a WBC kind of vibe where you bring the instruments, all those loud noises to the ballpark, and they're encouraging you to do it. So I highly suggest you all to come out, and it's going to be a good time. And today, with Flashback Friday, I think it is Brad Penny and Mike Lowell who are at the ballpark.
Yeah.
So
have you seen either one? Have you seen either one around yet, or
I have
not
not
yet?
seen either.
Okay.
I haven't seen either one, but I assume we'll be seeing them and talking to them soon, hopefully.
Excellent stuff. All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. Enjoy the game. We'll be looking forward to the recap from you guys and any tweets. If you guys don't already follow Kevin and Daniel on Twitter, Kevin's Twitter is right there at the bottom of his thing. Jesus Christ, I cannot point. All right. So with that being said, we're gonna take a break. We have a commercial presented by our sponsor, La Pop. And we'll be back after that to discuss Flashback Friday at the ballpark. All right, welcome back, everyone. Real quick before we get into the Flashback Friday stuff, of course, we have mentioned Isaac's here. Isaac was in Atlanta for 3 of the 4 games. He saw all 3 losses. He said that he didn't think he was the problem around the 6th or 7th inning, and the comeback happened. So were you the problem?
I think so, man. It's the minute my flight was announced that it was going to be delayed 2 hours, and it turned out not to be. When I was in the air, that's when the hits started coming in that 9th inning. So I truly think that the Marlins just needed me out of Atlanta. I'm never going back to that godforsaken city again. Beautiful ballpark, beautiful people that were working there, but I'm going to stay away because obviously the Marlins don't like it when I'm
Bad
there.
vibes.
Bad
If
vibes.
I'm keeping this correctly, the Marlins are 1-6 when Isaac covers games.
Oh my goodness, Isaac! What?
No,
We were making fun of Noah for his split earlier,
wait a
but
second.
man,
They've
that's
won-
pretty bad.
They've won more than one when I'm at work.
That's an unofficial count. I may have to double check that. That's what I had in my notes though. 1-6 so far.
Swell.
I think all time I'm 4-3. I might be the only one that's over 500. maybe. I don't. We'll need to look at that at a later time.
I don't
but
think anyone on the Fish Tribe staff all time is over 500.
It's hard to do with this team.
Yeah, because
well, I'm the only one that has because I have a very limited sample size.
Right.
The Marlins
Well,
is like they just like to win in Ohio.
Again, this is unofficial, but if I have this right, Krutchik, they're undefeated so far for you this year. Yeah.
Also, Grant, you no shade to your hometown team, but it's a little easier when the Marlins go into Cincinnati than when they go into Atlanta.
This is true. Well, they split in Cincy last year. Cleveland, I mean, the Guardians, they're off to a decently meh start, but of course that was a pretty good doubleheader sweep. And we'll look forward here as, of course, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary at Lone Depot Park this year, and that was the team that the Marlins beat in the 97 World Series, the Cleveland team. They weren't called that back then, but the Cubs, 03 NLCS, they're in town this weekend, Flashback Friday, and I put out a poll on Twitter for a project I'm doing for one of my journalism classes. I only have a week left of this first year of college, and I'm doing my final project on the possibility of the Marlins bringing back Teal. I did some interviews. I reached out to some people on Twitter. I used Josh Chisholm for some quotes in there when I was in Cleveland last weekend. So I asked you guys as part of a graphic I needed. I made like a chart. And maybe it will release on Fish Stripes. We'll see. I have to crunch it a little bit. But I asked, do you guys want to see Teal and Black return full time? To say that was the overwhelming majority would be an understatement. 90 to 10 for the Marlins to bring back Teal. 10% wanted to keep the current colors. And, of course, the Marlins will be wearing the 1993 throwbacks tonight. They are 2-0 so far. And then this year they've beaten the Mets and the Diamondbacks. And now they've got the Cubs tonight. So Marlins fans have been asking for this for a minute. Do you guys think that the Marlins would ever even dare think to go back to this, despite the fact that this is what the fans want?
Unpopular opinion from me would be no, because then if they're back full time, they're not as special anymore. And I think, as much shit
100%.
as the current uniforms get, the road grays are very nice. They're classy. I like them a lot. And the home whites are also very nice. I think they just need to work on the black ones, to be honest. And if you bring back the Teal full time, I don't know. It just wouldn't be the same in my opinion. I would bring them back more, maybe not just every home game Friday. I'd maybe bring back every home weekend series. Maybe that could be an option. Just bring it back more often, but to do it full time, I think would be a disservice to how wonderful they are.
I'm looking pretty bright here. All of a sudden, the sun just came in. But yeah, that was the argument I asked because I needed some counterpoints for my project of why you would keep the current colors. And a lot of people did say, yes, we want to. It takes away how special they are. And I think everyone can agree that the Teal should be there at least in a throwback capacity. They should make an appearance every single year. We've only seen these beautiful uniforms 3 times, or 3 separate seasons, I should say, since they went away as the primary uniform set in 2011. Of course, 2018, 2019, when they had the vests. Those are my personal favorite. And then back this year for the anniversary. And then, yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I feel like everyone's main complaint is the black ones. I've also seen some people complain that the home uniforms say Miami and that they should say Marlins, but that's getting nitpicky. My biggest request, it's been my biggest request since the uniforms came out, is get blue into the mix. Sunday blues or just day game blues. Those batting practice jerseys are awesome. That was the first one I bought when they released back in 2018. That is a good uniform. So we'll go around the panel here. Would you guys want to see Teal come back full time? And if so, I mean, we know why, but if not, also give your reasoning.
Well, not to tamper down people's hopes and dreams, I still am very pessimistic about it, just because while this current ownership is in place, now it was more of a Derek Jeter-led initiative to basically rip up everything that they used to stand for and start fresh. It was kind of his mindset that people didn't really want to celebrate the history, that they wanted a fresh start and to acknowledge the past as little as possible. With him out the door, it kind of opens up the possibility that Bruce Sherman or the highest level decision makers could be swayed. It's going back to what is clearly the most popular possibility that they have. But I still don't see it. I think they're still going to, whenever possible, you want to create something new. something brand new, even if it's similar to something that used to be around. As powerful as nostalgia is, I think there's still also the overriding desire to continue to create something new and to distinguish themselves from their predecessors. So I don't think it's likely. I will say that the Flashback Fridays is kind of an intermediate step. There are still certain people, such as our friend Noah Berger, who, because they're always on Fridays, he can't attend and he can't even watch those games live. And I think there is a significant portion of the fan base that, for whatever reason, they have conflicts with that particular day. If they were able to ideally like increase the usage of it, or make it, just find a more creative way to make sure that people, more of a higher variety of people, have an opportunity to actually see these in action and attend on a day where they're being used, that'd be a nice step forward as well. It doesn't seem like they have the perfect solution right now. You do give them credit for like taking that step forward, considering how this was not even a part of any of their plans over the previous few years. So they took that little step to embrace the past. And they put together obviously a combination that people love to see on the field.
Well, I kind of suggested as well, there's a lot of people that can't see these uniforms. My suggestion would be just sprinkle them out this season randomly, or if you have any big home series, especially now with the schedule change, and you have really big AL teams coming in, such as like the Yankees and Red Sox and teams like that, I would suggest maybe just sprinkling them out throughout the season. Just, even if it's a random Wednesday night, but the Toronto Blue Jays are in town, or whoever, Houston Astros, why not wear it? Bring people out to the ballpark against a pretty good team. That could definitely help numbers. So you don't really have to be married to a certain day in that aspect. But Alex, you had stuff, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, my first question was, does Major League Baseball have kind of an NFL type rule where you can only wear a certain jersey a certain amount of times? Because I would like to see because I would like to see maybe not a specific day, but just pick one game each homestand or each series.
So I'll lay out the uniform rules because they changed this year for the first time in a while with Nike taking over in 2020. There hadn't been a ton of changes until this year. So Nike does have a pretty set formula for all three major leagues that they have. NFL, who they've had for the longest, NBA, they just got about 6 years ago now, and then MLB for the last few years. You have a home uniform, which will be white, or has to be white pants, I should say. A road uniform that has to be gray pants. So I've suggested that maybe the Marlins could drop the gray jersey at some point and maybe make black as a road jersey. I don't know. And then 2 alternates. I don't know if do you guys remember when the Mets brought back the black jerseys and they could only wear them like 5 times throughout the season? I don't know if that still exists. So that's why I said sort of to that answer. But I know that there is 4 uniforms and 1 that they can have. So the home, you're away, 2 alternates, and then your City Connect. So the City Connect will turn over in the next couple of years. I don't know when for sure. I think the Major League Baseball is waiting for every team to get one. And I still don't think every team's going to get one until at least the end of next year. The Mariners just released theirs today. Beautiful, beautiful jerseys. But this is Nike's structure right here. I've been saying that I want to write an article on this, and I'm getting passionate about it again. So I will. They'll lay out the potential to eliminate the grays, maybe make the black your road jersey. I know Isaac said he loves the gray jerseys, but the Rays got rid of their gray jerseys. The Mariners got rid of their gray jerseys. The Marlins were black on the road a decent amount already, usually once per series on average, I would say. So you do black on the road. That does not prevent the Marlins from wearing these jerseys at home still. They can mix and match in that regard. You do a throwback as an alternate. And then, like I suggested, people like the blue. Blue during the day, that's something that's been a rumor for a while. You can incorporate that, and then you'll be able to keep your City Connect for as long as possible in that regard.
Man, I miss those days where it was just you're home, you wear white. You're on the road, you wear gray, like the Yankees have done for hundreds of years. How hard?
Right, and that's been ruined in the NBA. I feel like people
ruined.
just wear whatever jersey.
That's true. They've taken it too far, and then they changed it.
The NBA went too far. Yeah. The NFL, they've kind of kept some structure.
I don't like
it.
what I like about
baseball
Isaac is that
thing, though. Like fuck the NFL. No offense, I'm just saying, like in baseball, grays on the road, white at home. How hard is that? The Yankees have had two uniforms.
When you've got Nike at the helm, it gets entirely different.
See,
Nike's a whole different entity.
Isaac is taught well. Jack has taught Isaac well because Isaac is a baseball purist. He likes the organ grinder. He likes the ability to go to a game and watch the game for the game, and he likes traditional jersey. So Isaac is a baseball purist, which I really like about him. What I will say about this, and bravo to Jack for that, by the way, Isaac. Give him my congratulations because he raised you well. Anyways, what I will say about this is that this is what I grew up with. I mean, I grew up with the teal caps and the teal jerseys. I mean, me and Eli are around the same age, but Eli didn't grow up in South Florida. I grew up in South Florida, going to the old stadium and watching the Marlins from '93. I started going to baseball games for the Marlins, and I was only 5 years old back then, but that was all I knew. Of course, it's changed, and the game has changed, and things have changed, but Isaac is right. Like, keep it traditional. I mean, it doesn't have to be the same uniform every day. I'm not saying that. Wear the same uniform most of the time is what I'm saying. Wear the same uniform on the road. Wear the same uniform at home. If you want to do a mix-in special day here and there for the special occasions like the Marlins are doing with this beautiful hat that you're seeing on screen, which I love the teal. I really, really do. I'm glad it's back. Conine's points this spring before the season started about wanting to memorize and commemorate the history of this organization, because even though this organization is only 30 years old, there's 2 World Series here. There's no hitters. There's now a cycle as of this year. So there's a lot of history here that you can talk about leading up to the present day. It's important to try to honor that. I think Jeter got away from it, as Eli was talking about. It shouldn't be gotten away from, because people like me that grew up with this, they want to remember it. So they've done a great job with the museum. They do a great job with the uniforms, but the once in a while is totally fine. I don't think this should be a full-time thing, because the Marlins are now the Miami Marlins. It's a different organization. It's a different time. But there's definitely time to remember your history. And I think the Marlins are doing it very well.
Also from a marketing,
I think everyone loves that swordfish, but I feel like that logo wouldn't be the same with an M. There's something so sharp about that F and that font. You can't use it again. They can't be the Florida Marlins under contract rules. They have to be the Miami Marlins as long as they play in Lone Depot Park. But I just don't feel like the M would look right.
From a marketing perspective, the Marlins are in the perfect spot right now, because they get to say, hey, every Friday, come on out to the ballpark. You get to see them wear teal. If they get rid of that, then for a couple weeks, everyone will be, excited. Yeah, then exactly. Why come to the ballpark? And then from a merchandise perspective, once everyone then buys all the teal again, it'll be a year until your sales kind of go stagnant. I'm not a marketing major, so maybe a year or two before your sales go stagnant.
That's the thing too. Like, people love what's fresh. I mean, they like what's fresh. They like what's being done every so often. If the Marlins did this all the time, like let's say they did this hat that's on the screen with an M, right, and the patch taken away for the 30th anniversary. Like, let's say they did this all the time. People will like it for like 2 weeks, and then it'll be like, okay, yeah, it's old now, and then they'll be back to the same, crowds that they've been getting. So to say every Friday we're going to do this, come out to the park for this, show up for this, it's a special event. It's also great from a marketing perspective, as Alex just laid out. So that goes into it too, is how do you market this? Like, how do you bring it back, but how do you market it correctly? So that also goes into this equation. And I think, like I said, I think the Marlins are doing this very well. It's here. Fans can now buy this hat as of tonight at Lone Depot Park. I'm sure their sales will do well on this. I wish they would sell it online, which hopefully that's coming, but we'll see what happens with that. I think they're doing it correctly. I'm just glad that they brought it back in this capacity, because I think it needed to be done.
100%. And any other thoughts on that? I love uniform discourse, especially doing this project on it. It's been fresh on my mind. My personal opinion, I guess I'll give mine, is I do think they should continue with the uniforms they have, but sprinkle in Florida Marlin nights at different times, so that way it can be accessible to all. If you want a chance to go see these uniforms, you get a chance. And they wore these uniforms for 18 years, so or different variations of these uniforms. You have the vest, you have the black throwbacks, you have the teal ones. You see people wearing that Mitchell and Ness, Andre Dawson one everywhere. It's all over the internet. It seems to be the only one you can buy, because I've looked into it. You have chances to cycle them in and out. And of course, Nike will let them do that, because that's just more money for Nike. So, that's my personal thought. But
my hope is they bring back those black Florida Marlins jerseys. Those are really dope.
I like the black throwbacks.
Those are sick.
With the silver Marlins across. Yeah.
And they still do the Players Weekend nonsense jerseys too, right? Where those are another.
They have it under Nike, I don't believe.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe because if there's just too many.
It
at
might
this
be
point.
done. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, as I remember in 2019 or
2019,
2017,
they wore those all whites.
Yeah, those were disgusting. And 2017, they were okay, but still, it was like the Yankees were very upset. Well, I don't think the Yankees were upset, but Yankee fans and Yankee purists were upset because forever that was the first time the Yankees wore a non-traditional uniform. Like, what the fuck?
It's going to be interesting to see what their City Connect uniforms look like. They better have.
They better not
pinstripes.
make a City Connect uniform.
Isaac,
Everyone gets a City Connect uniform.
The
better
Yankees
have
better not get a City Connect uniform. It's bad enough the Red Sox did it. The Yankees better not. I'd be very upset if they do.
Isaac,
they will. It's going to be pinstripe.
Isaac is abhorrently not a fan of Harlan the Marlin on the back of a jersey, apparently.
Harlan the Marlin. What was Stan's nickname again? Big G or something stupid?
It was just G.
Cruz. No,
it was Cruz. Yeah.
Oh,
He hit
Cruz,
that
yeah.
iconic
Yeah.
run
Yeah.
against the Padres that weekend, and they swept them, and they were like a game back of 500. And
the only cool nickname was Kyle Seager's. It was Corey's brother.
I like Justin Bieber's. It was not Justin. That was a good one.
Shane.
Can
Yeah,
I
Shane
say one
Bieber,
thing
yeah.
though? Is Cal Raleigh, I believe he's a catcher with Seattle, graduate from FSU alum. His nickname is Big Dumper. So I do hope they bring back the Players Weekend uniforms again just for that guy.
I respectfully disagree.
We'll see. I mean, Nike's got to have some stuff planned. Nike always just has something different. I mean, ever since they did Color Rush for the NFL, like they will always have something planned up their sleeves. They've done a good job with City Connect so far. I feel like I know some people hate them, but I feel like there's maybe one or two like objectively bad City Connect uniforms.
The Rangers one that came out is pretty.
The
bad.
Rangers one's the only one I legitimately hate. I hate it.
Pretty bad.
That's
So,
it. That's it. The rest
The
of them
one
are
that
very,
was
very
ranked
good.
number one on MLB Now was the San Diego Padres one, which I think is disgusting. It's
It's just
cotton
a lot
candy.
of colors. It's
It's
a lot of
cotton
colors, but
candy on the jersey. Like, what
a
is
lot
this?
of
It
them?
looks like
It makes sense for that market though, because the Hispanic culture that's in that area.
Yeah,
That's
I get it.
They've been true to the City Connect in that regard, where city uniforms in the NBA, a lot of them, like, they just don't really have anything to do with the city. It's just another alternate uniform. City Connect, I feel like there's a story to tell with every single uniform. And it's really cool to see.
So write a story about it. Don't ruin uniforms because of it.
It's just a few nights out of 162. You can't do it the same thing every night.
I know.
I mean, Miami does luckily have one of the better ones. There
Thank
was a reason
goodness.
why was among the first to release, because Nike knew they had something good. All right, we'll move into our series now. I believe Alex Krutchik has to go, so thank you for joining us. It was going to be a small crowd.
I love you, Alex.
The beer tonight. Thank you. So we'll talk about the series at hand and where the Marlins will be wearing these jerseys. There's something special with every single game, and something that I've been keeping an eye on all year as an out-of-market Marlins fan. And a lot of you guys watching are not exactly from South Florida. So 2 nationally televised games this weekend, and one of them isn't tonight. So tomorrow, it will be on Fox. I released a TV map that was on 506 Sports. It's actually a pretty decent coverage area. You can watch the Marlins on Fox. And then the first Peacock game, the first noon starts. So West Coast Marlins fans, you're going to have to get up early for that one. With
a Brian Hoeing start, a nationally televised Brian Hoeing start. Let's go. We like to see
That's
that.
right. I need to figure out whether I'm still subscribed to that. People, be sure to check whether or not you have Peacock right now. I think I used it just for exclusively. I was the target audience for this. Where last year I only got it because of the MLB games last season. Pretty sure I stopped after a couple months.
Yeah, and there's only 2 Marlins games this season on Peacock. So, I mean, if you have to miss 2 games, like,
something else I hate, by the way, another thing I despise is this streaming only nonsense. What the hell happened?
It's about to get really interesting. Of course, we could do a whole stream on what is happening with RSNs. The Phoenix Suns news came out today, and I believe the Reds are about to start doing their own broadcast. So that will impact me locally, being in Cincinnati, starting again next week. But let's talk about the series at hand here. Some good pitching matchups and some decent lineups. I like the top half of the Marlins lineup. Skip kind of keeping it per usual. He moves things around subtly. So let's dissect here. What are our thoughts?
Well, Arise is in the cleanup spot is a relatively new development. He just started putting them there once he came back from this recent knee discomfort scare. That is interesting. But as you mentioned, the same 4 names in some order near the top with Jazz, Cooper, Soler, and Arise. I think Isaac would probably bring this up, that the nice pleasant surprise is Jesus Sanchez in there for a third straight day after hitting a home run 2 nights ago. Last night he had 1 hit overall. This is such a critical week for them to find out what they have in him, knowing that potentially in the near future they face a tough decision as to whether he makes sense on the roster at all. The way they were using him for most of the season did not make sense to me, and I'm happy to see that he, at least against right-handers, that they're giving him a shot, knowing like when things line up that he hits the ball as far as anybody, and that his slugging is a very important element that this lineup needs.
Yeah, and I would say, like, with the current roster constructed the way it is, this is definitely their A lineup. There's no one sitting that I'm upset about. And yeah, you mentioned Sanchez. De La Cruz, it sort of comes at a perfect time because De La Cruz has sort of been struggling. He had a good series in Cleveland, obviously, but he really struggled in that Atlanta series, coming off a 5 strikeout game. I believe that's the first time in Marlins history. What was it?
It was the first time that somebody's gone 0 for 5 with 5 Ks.
With the Marlins. Okay, so there you go. And something I would have asked Skip, how do you balance? Because obviously coming off a performance like that, the thing you want to do the most is put him back out there and have him play again. But with someone like Sanchez, you also need to win ball games. So you do want to maybe sit him a little bit if he is in one of those prolonged slumps. And we know De La Cruz is one of the more streaky hitters. And when it's bad, it's very bad for this player. So Sanchez has shown a little bit in Atlanta, cranked on 440 feet almost over the chop house. One of the more impressive shots I've seen from a Marlin this year, further than any Soler home run this year so far. So got to be pleased with that. And yeah, I don't love a rise in the cleanup spot. I don't love that. I'd rather than him and Soler flip-flop there. But I know we asked Skip about it. It's just separating the lefties as much as possible. And the good thing about it is you're separating the strikeouts. Jazz obviously strikes out a lot, Soler too. So you're sort of putting 2 better pure hitters in between them. So that's the reasoning for that.
Like the speed at the back end too with Birdie playing shortstop tonight. I like the speed at the back end to be able to turn it over for Jazz. That's good. You get a speedy guy on base. Jazz gets a base hit and go to third base. That sets it up for your power guys with Cooper, Soler. The only thing that I'm kind of questioning in this lineup, as we can see it right here, is Arias. I think is he in the 4 spot? Is that actually true? Arias in the 4 spot? I don't know about that. That should be a power hitting position. I would probably flop him and Soler in this lineup personally. But other than that, the 4 spot, you want your cleanup guy, the guy that can clean up the bases. That's what it means. Arias isn't really that guy because he's a base hit guy. So as you can see by his hard hit percentage at 22.7, it's not the guy that he is. It's not really the spot for him. So I would not like to see Arias in the 4 spot. I would probably flip-flop him and Soler. But other than that, I think it's a good lineup. Sanchez, like you guys said, it's make it or break it. Like it's going to be it. I think we saw a stat on the screen from somebody saying that been good in his last 7 games. It's the kind of player that can go from good to bad at any given moment. That's just the kind of variance that this player has. It's unfortunate because when he hits it very far. But when he whiffs, which he does a lot, he looks foolish. So, this is going to be a guy that it's a very big week for him. So it's a big series, big week, big end of the month for Jesus. See if he can stick around.
And this is a good point right here on your screen. Nick Fortes has been pretty bad this year. Both Marlins catchers have been pretty bad at the plate, which Fortes played pretty well at the plate last year. Came up midway through the year, something that a lot of people forgot that happened, and batted his way into some legitimate playing time. I would say he's probably the Marlins' top dog right now, even though it seems pretty split. But him and Stallings are both really, really, really struggling. I mean, I guess you didn't listen to Pitchology
last night, Grant. Yeah, they mentioned that those 2 players, what their combined OPS under 470.
Yeah, geez, that's terrible.
It's even by catcher standards, it is one of the worst in the big leagues.
And they have only since the home run in the second game of the season or third game of the season, they have not hit a home run. They have not gotten a home run from that catching position. Yes. And just something else on the number 4 spot. I've seen situations where it does make sense to have someone like a Rise in that cleanup spot. Even let's say if Segura was doing what he'd normally do, he'd be someone that I'd be interested in seeing in that spot. But that's not the world that we live in right now. I remember Placido Polanco was hitting cleanup for the Marlins in 2013 for a while, and that was it wasn't a fun time.
Different time. Different. It was
not a fun time. Placido, and this wasn't prime Placido Polanco. This was 2013 Placido Polanco, and it was. Yeah. I don't know if I would like to see a Rise for sure getting at bat in the first inning.
And Carver mentioned the speed at the bottom, and Birdie's kind of been in that like ghost leadoff, false leadoff type role, but And we said Fortes has been pretty bad this year. He has sucked at the plate, but he's one of the faster catchers in the league. He's got some speed. You saw it in the Cleveland series, especially. He was getting good jumps. He got from like first, third a couple times when he did actually make his way on base. So the Marlins did. The Skip has constructed some speed at the bottom of this lineup, it seems. You look at the sprint speed from 5 to 9 all the way down. It's all at least some shade of red.
Yeah. I would think that 29.1 is near the top. I don't have the leaders in front of me. Maybe one of you guys do, but I would think 29.1 is amongst the top fastest guys in baseball. That's a ridiculous sprint speed where 30 is like top of the charts. He's at 29.1 for 30.
30 is elite.
That's fantastic. Also for Jazz with 28.8 is also very, very good. Avi too, surprisingly. We don't see his speed very much because he doesn't get on base that much, but 28.1, pretty good as well. Yes, it's pretty quick lineup. I mean, it's kind of hidden speed. It's kind of speed that we kind of take for granted. But if you look at the other side of the ledger here with the Cubs, they're also not too terribly bad. But when you have that much red on your side of the board and those 27s there in the middle as well with Fortes and Sanchez and even Segura, who's an older player, that's pretty impressive to see that that the Marlins are this fast of a team. We just want to see it put to use a little bit more.
Yeah, Birdie is number 20 in the league in sprint speed average at 29.1. Like you said, number 1 is Bobby Wood Jr. I thought he was number 1 at 30.4. Corbin Carroll, Bubba Thompson, Trey Turner. Those are the top 4 in sprint speed. So yeah, he is in the top 20 of players when it comes to sprint speed.
The last note I have here is on Bellinger, who was a popular Marlins Twitter target over the offseason. I was kind of skeptical of him turning things around. To this point in the season, he is really bouncing back pretty well with his new surroundings. As you see, the strikeout rate basically cut in half from where it was the previous couple of years. He'd been playing center field every single day until earlier this week when he took paternity leave. And this is his first game back from a few days of paternity leave. Seeing him, he hit for a cycle, if I remember correctly, in this ballpark when he was with the Dodgers. So, and this will be a good firsthand look at
2017 home run derby as well.
Yeah, this will be a firsthand look at the potentially fixed, potentially revamped version of Bellinger, who again is going to be a free agent next offseason, if you guys dare to dream about that.
Yeah, that's going to be more expensive than he was this year. So.
You talk about private deals and investing in yourself. I'm sure Chicago would love to keep him, but wherever that guy goes next, he's getting paid. That was a really good investment in himself. Of course, Toby, he can keep it up. It's early. There's been a lot of guys that have caught on fire in April and fizzled out, but I don't expect that from Bellinger. And this is a really good Cubs lineup. Coming into the year, I had the Cardinals winning the division, but that NL Central Division. But after watching them for a month, I'm watching the Cubs a little bit. I think the Cubs might take this division. So if the Marlins could take a series from them, that would be ginormous. So are we ready for predictions to see who has the Marlins taking this series?
Yes, let's do it. This is prediction time.
It's time.
I still don't believe that's Eli saying that. It doesn't sound like
a good voice promo.
Okay, well, so let's get this queued up first with our press box report guys. They recorded theirs while they were at the ballpark.
Oh no!
But what I want to make sure I do.
Kevin Daniel love their pre-recording theirs.
They love their pre-recording and they love talking to anyone they can talk to.
Yeah. So let me
over under 4.5 predictions in this video.
I would say I think there's gonna be 3.
Okay.
It's gonna be Alex Aguirre and Kevin and Daniel, or maybe Joe Versaro's in it.
All right,
I see just 2.
Cubs series predictions. I'm gonna go first. I have the Marlins taking 2 out of 3, with my MVP being Jesus Luzardo.
It's not up.
All right, I'm gonna go almost a complete opposite of that.
Let me restart it.
All right, Marlins versus Cubs series predictions. I'm gonna go first. I have the Marlins taking 2 out of 3, with my MVP being Jesus Luzardo.
All right, I'm gonna go almost a complete opposite of that. I'm gonna go Cubs take 2 out of 3. I'm gonna have new dad Cody Bellinger as my MVP. He's gonna have a great series. Cubs take 2 out of 3. Now let's get it back to Eli Grant and Alex Carver.
Oh, what am I? Chopped liver?
For what it's
recorded that
worth,
ahead
you
of
didn't
time.
say you were going to be on the stream. For what it's worth, I also didn't say I was going to be in the stream. You and I have already shown our hands for these predictions. So we'll start around the clock here. Isaac, what do you got?
Miami will win this series 2 out of 3. I think they'll win the first 2 and lose on Sunday on Peacock Capital Day. And Jesus Luzardo will be your MVP.
I'll go next.
Mr. Eli.
Yeah, I have the Marlins winning the series 2 out of 3 with my series MVP, John Birdie. Watch John Birdie do some more damage at the plate than we're used to seeing.
Oh man. Well, Brian Hoeing's pitching, so I gotta pick him for a win that day, and then I love Luzardo as well. So we'll go Marlins 2 out of 3, and this is a make it or break it guy, as we just talked about. I think he's gonna show it the series. Jesus Sanchez MVP.
Woo! I've got a very specific one, and I think I picked against the Marlins every single series this year until now. I've got a sweep. My series MVP is Jorge Soler, and here's why. Tomorrow will be his first time on Fox since Game 6 2021 World Series, where he hit that absolute tank. I think he hits 2 home runs tomorrow, and the Marlins will sweep this series, get 3 games over 500. I think it's the most specific one I've ever given, but I have a hunch Jorge Soler is going to have a really big game tomorrow in front of the big audience. Just a big game guy. That's what he is.
Let me quickly just remind our audience at home what our leaderboard looks like so far during this season, where it's a tie, atop a 3-way tie. I know Gabriel has been watching along for most of the show. He is in the tie for first along with Kevin and one of our other super subscribers. And when you do subscribe to our Twitter account, that is how you participate in predictions before every single series. Most of this top of this leaderboard are super subscribers, so they get into it and they know their stuff. And so we keep track of that on our site. For all just $2.99 a month is one of the many perks as you get involved in prediction time alongside the rest of us. I fell out of the top 10 this past week, but yeah, I'm feeling pretty good.
I'm
about
near
this
the bottom right now. I have been bad because I picked against the Marlins a lot, and they've been winning some series. So one of the biggest surprises here, Noah is number 6. He has 0 series MVP points. I think it's because he's picked Avi Garcia as a series MVP on numerous occasions now. That will do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
And we have one particular subscriber, David Tobin. Every single series he picks a Marlins sweep and DLC to win MVP.
That might be Noah's burner.
That's Noah's burner. That is
Noah's burner.
Noah Burger's burner account right there.
Most likely.
All right. Well, I think that's all we've got. We got about 12 minutes. The first pitch that will be on Bally Sports Florida. Of course, no Bally Sports until after tonight until the Atlanta series. So everyone enjoy their weekend. Sweep incoming. First Marlins sweep. They will finally finish the job. You heard it here first on Fish Stripes Live. We will be back for series preview for the Atlanta series. We have State of the Fish on Sunday. Don't know a time yet. Busy week for me.
I should let everybody know in between. Well, right after State of the Fish on Monday night, it's an off day. We're doing Marlins Jeopardy.
Yes. I couldn't remember.
In season for the first time so far here in 2023. So I'm very excited for that. We have a full house. I have not even started putting together the Jeopardy boards, but I am optimistic that it's going to be a fun, original content trivia about the past and present of this team. So join us for that on Monday night.
Fish Stripes.
Defending champs are coming back for that one, is all I'll say. We'll unveil the full audience later. But until then, enjoy your weekend. State of the Fish on Sunday. Don't know what time yet, but go Marlins, and we'll see you next time.